Hey, this is Ralph. In this video, we're going to start working on reproducing the Columbia.com navigation menu. So let's see. So this is the Columbia website right up here. They've got this little top bar up at the top. Little promo hyperlink. Notice the whole piece of text up here in the white bar is a hyperlink, even though the word shop now are underlined. All right, it's good to know. And over on the far right side, they've got this little icon menu. Shopping cart, my account, shipping location, customer care, that kind of stuff. Cool. And then the real action is just below that in this main bar. Of course, they've got their hyperlinked logo off to the left. Then they have this navigation menu. And as I hover over, we get a nice blocky representation of the subcategories and things like that. And then they've got a little promo area off to the side. Each menu is pretty much the same structure. Occasionally you have a slightly different hyperlink color. There we go. There's activates on click. You get a submenu when you click, like men's shoes, and we can see these other items over here. All right, looks pretty good. And it doesn't completely cover up that right side promo area. Over to the right, we've got a little search box. I'll get to that in a minute. Then there's a large hero section with another little navigation down there. Now, I'm not completely done, but here's my take on it so far. I was working on this yesterday, and so I've got this top bar up here. I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm like 90% happy with everything that I did on here. So, yep, pretty cool with that. And then I've got the little icon navigation. I think I would like you to do this icon navigation up here as an extra credit activity. And I specifically want you to use Font Awesome, which is what I did. It's free, and it's a pretty neat little syntax which allows you to add icons or iconography to your web page, and you can color them and size them kind of like text in a way. So pretty useful, and it's actually quite popular. And I found, obviously, icons. There you go, a little question mark, globe, person, shopping cart, question mark, globe, person, shopping cart, which I thought was a pretty close facsimile to what they were using over at Columbia. So definitely an easy way to do. Let's see, one little thing that I'm not as pleased with on the official Columbia website, you'll notice that the little tag kind of fades in, and when I hover away, it fades out really fast. I guess it's fading out really, really fast. And on mine, it fades in, but it just kind of turns off. So, yeah, there's a little issue with that, but yeah, not a big deal. So yeah, do your best. Reproduce this as an extra credit part of the assignment. The main part of the assignment is going to be down here in the main bar. Of course, I changed my mock business to Deschutes, and I just used a HTML entity. I'll show you that in a little bit for the pretend logo. Not too bad, not too different than Columbia's. Now you'll notice I got that little word "mit" there. That's my submit button. I didn't style yet the little search box over there on the far right. I'll get to that later on. I know coming up soon, we do have a little component on styling form elements and stuff. So I may get to that, but it's not a big deal. It's there. It's just kind of off to the side, waiting to be messed with. I also hadn't gotten to, by the way, this little drop down for Shop Trail. It's a neat little drop down. I'm not too worried about that. It's going to be pretty easy. Little one-level submenu. Just hadn't got around to it, and I wanted to get this assignment demonstration out soon because it is now Sunday. So let's see. So let's get to the menu part here. So you'll notice as I go through my various components, I use the same one. When you're working on this, as I'll demonstrate here in a few minutes, just focus your attention on one menu. There's no need to do it all at once, because if you can do, like I played around with footwear and then men's shoes, once you can get that one section working, then it's just a matter of copying and pasting and tweaking text to the others. So it doesn't add any extra learning value or extra skill necessarily. So once we get one, we can copy and paste to the others. And that's what I did here. So I did copy and paste just before turning on the video to have more options. So yeah, we've got the drop down, and I've got mine enacting on hover, which actually I like a little bit better, and didn't require any JavaScript. There's pure CSS going on here. So otherwise, I'm pretty satisfied with everything, how it's working. We can see on theirs especially when I hover over and go away from winter sale. They do a little animation, a really quick drop down, and then when you move away, it just disappears. Yeah, that's not bad. Kind of like that. I ended up just going with an opacity, kind of a fade in effect, which works both on the hover and on the move away. So just two different techniques. I did at the very last minute before turning on the recorder realize they do have a slight box shadow on there. Just barely see it, but it helps that submenu just kind of pop on top of the hero graphic. So I really quickly put a little box shadow on mine, and it does help. I probably didn't match theirs exactly, but that's okay. We're going for a really good facsimile here. I do want to see some attention to detail, but yeah, no need to, to be too nitpicky. We don't want to pick nits about, hey, how blurry is that shadow? How big is that shadow? Or is the font exactly the same? At a glance, though, I would like someone to be able to say, okay, yeah, there's the Columbia navigation. Looks pretty good, and here is our version of it. Okay, so that's really what we're doing here. I'm going to encourage you many times along the way to pause and work ahead of me and kind of predict what we're going to do. We're going to obviously save a lot, and it's okay to save multiple versions of your files, a little old school generic version control just by saving different versions of files so that you feel like you can experiment a little bit with other techniques. All right, so what am I going to do here? I've got my markup already, but that makes life too easy. So I'm going to go ahead and take a moment and just save backups of all of my working files here. Okay, so it's always a little bit scary when you're deleting a bunch of hard-earned markup and styling, but I think I've saved everything properly, and I know that font is too tiny for you to see, so let me go ahead and zoom in on that. And I'll just kind of draw your attention to a couple things that I did. Otherwise, it's pretty standard HTML markup, nothing really exciting there. You notice I did use a bunch of different external CSS files. Now, part of that, the first one is just Font Awesome. That's how you kind of import the CSS syntax, and then it allows you to type in some code. I don't necessarily want to show you that one because that's going to be that extra credit component, but yeah, that's something that's part of the Font Awesome process. And then I used multiple style sheets, and I mostly did this to keep things a little bit neater, a little bit more organized, but also it allowed me to style parts that I didn't want to show you, like the that top bar, that white bar going across the top. So I found it actually pretty useful, though, to focus on parts or key parts of the web page by using separate CSS files. So that was cool, and I think I will go ahead and keep that there. And let's see, and then that is about it. I deleted everything else, and we don't need all that space there. And then I've just got the body, and I left a div container. Didn't really come into play too much, but I like to put those, so I still have that on there. Okay, so off to the side here, I've got, this is Columbia's website, and of course here's my current version of my web page. This is my active page, so if I were to have some content over here, then it will show up on this page. Now, I did zoom out on these just by 90% because I didn't want their responsive page to kick in, so I'm working on the desktop styling here. So yeah, so that still looks pretty good, and we'll have that off to the side. Now, when I was working on this, and I found this super helpful, is I did take a little screen capture. So basically I said, okay, first is going to be just working on this page. We may not need to do that. We can just kind of look at it, but I did find it helpful to have a picture of what I was doing off to the side so I could refer to that and just kind of glance up and say, okay, that's white, that's about so tall, and so forth. So that's always a little helpful trick. Obviously easier when you have multiple displays going on, just to have a picture plan of what you're going to be creating. I think I can use my screen capture when my screen recorder's on. Yeah, so basically I would just draw a picture of that. Yeah, I only did to about there, of course. And then I can open in my image editor, which is off to the side. And there we go. And it just gives me a still picture to look at, just so I can get a feel for what's going on as I'm typing in styling. So yeah, I'm just going to move that off to another monitor and just kind of occasionally glance at it, see how things are looking there. Cool. So whenever you're starting on a big project like this, start from the outside in, start from the top and go down, and do parts that seem easy. And if it starts to seem a little bit weird, is it a component that you can skip and move on? Yeah, that happened to me. So yeah, there'd be times when, this was getting a little frustrating, so maybe I move down, start on that part. Oh, that gives me an idea. Let me go back and try something up there. And as I pointed out on mine, well, of course you can't see that anymore. I never ended up getting to the little search box. Not too worried about that search box. I'm not too worried about this little drop down here. So I'll do those later on, certainly. So let's go ahead and get to work and start working on our basic layout. I'm going to keep this picture up here for a moment, or the actual Columbia website, as we start to work on these various sections. There's a couple times I am going to refer to my syntax because I just want to get the names, the IDs and classes that I used before, and there's a couple of HTML entities which I don't have memorized that I'll have to reference, but I'll tell you all about those and how I got them and stuff. All right, so in the container of my page, let's go ahead and get to work. I can see, we've got a top bar, then we've got this big nav bar, and then there's, of course, the big hero section. I'm not worried about any of that other stuff down there. So at least we have these 3 key sections to play around with. So, and I actually used section tags this time. ID equals top bar is what I called mine. Very descriptive names, and I'm just going to go ahead and just put in top bar right up there. And let's get some line spaces so we don't get too cluttered looking. Okay, and then I used another section, ID equals, and I called it Nav Bar, which I'm including everything. So the logo, the main nav, which I created separate elements, and then the form, the little search box over there. But that's the nav bar, and then section ID equals, I'm pretty sure I just called that hero. I don't have it on my notes, but I'm pretty certain that's what I called it. Not a big deal. Okay, so yeah, so basically those 3 sections, and then it's, nice to start giving some basic style to those. Now I will tell you, I used a little tool here, which I found nice, Pixel Zoomer. There's a bunch like this, and I used it to measure some things out. So I learned that this white top bar is like 45 pixels tall. This main nav here is 90 pixels tall, and this other bar hero section is basically 380 to 500 depending on where. I ended up choosing. I take that back. It was like 440 pixels tall or something. Very useful little tool, by the way. So I can click on my little device there, and I'm under selection mode right now. Notice it gave me a kind of a still version of that picture, and then I could just use the selection tool to just kind of click and drag, and I would say, oh, okay, that's basically, yeah, I'm not getting it right. Oh, that's right, I forgot I'm reduced 90%, so my numbers are going to look a little different. And that's why I was a little thrown off, because I remember that was about 45 pixels tall. This nav bar here was like 90 pixels tall, so it's twice of it. My numbers displaying now are different because I've zoomed out a little bit on this page. So that's basically how I got an estimate of various heights and things like that. I guessed accurately at this Columbia logo. It was 200 pixels wide, I recall. So cool. So that's a useful little tool. I think every web developer should have something like that. It also gives me a color grabber. I didn't really need to, a little eyedropper, so you can hover over sections and you can grab the actual hex code color. We didn't have to worry, we could just eyeball colors on this one, I think. But that's another really useful tool that comes in quite a bit. So that's where I've got some of those numbers that I first thought of. Yeah, I'll leave this as my screen right here. This is, of course, our hero section. Okay, let's get to work on the main styling. So I'm already referencing a style sheet here. It's going to be my Columbia Navigation 0.css. That's going to be where I kind of control the main elements, and then I'll move on to other stuff like the main navigation there. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start off with the all-famous reset rule. I know some of you probably are using a separate CSS reset rule, separate CSS file. Perfectly fine. Something a little bit more involved. That's great. That's just been my tried and true. And you know what, let me break this up so I'm not going off the end. I don't want to wrap text, but I'll try to make sure I display everything nicely in there, and I'll zoom in another level. I do wish on VS Code when you zoomed in, it didn't necessarily zoom in on everything. But yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. Okay, so let's get to work. So my top bar is the first item. I can't quite see everything over here, so let's move that off to the side. Hashtag top bar. Now the top bar, I already mentioned, is 45 pixels tall, background color of white. That's not going to look really exciting here, but let's go ahead and make sure we control that. Now the width is already set. I'm not doing anything, but I will anyway. Width of 100% and a height of 45 pixels. Okay, if we wanted to, background color, light gray. Sometimes it's nice temporarily to put those colors on there, and we can swap it out later once other elements come to play. I didn't do anything yet with my container or even the body of the page. Not a big deal, really. But if you wanted to, you could. You can always go back later if we need to. All right, and then what's next? My nav bar. So hashtag nav bar. Now that one was, I'll go and put in with 100%. That was a height of 90 pixels. Now background color, we can put a background color on this one that closely matches. It's a really dark gray on there. So yeah, no problem. I'll just do hashtag 222, which is also a nice dark gray. It's a little too dark. 333, perfect. Okay, and then we have our hero section. I can't remember. I think the hero may have been like 440 pixels. I don't know if I have that on my notes at all. Oh, I did a height of 520 pixels. Okay, so be it. Height, let's do width and height. And I'll do a background color. And just for fun, let's do HSLA, and I'll do something like 210, 100%, 50%, 40%. Really, we're going to cover that up with an image, but just wanted to do that. So I can't spell the word section, but that's okay. No need to spell those kinds of things correctly. All right, it's top bar, nav bar, hero section. I've got that basic layout. Feeling pretty happy with that. Top bar, nav bar, hero section. And let me go back to my top bar, and I will change that to a nice white to have that mimic kind of what it's supposed to be. Now again, I'm not going to really mess around with this top bar in this video because that's going to be extra credit. So for the top bar extra credit, you should have this basic text hyperlink off to the side. Notice it looks pretty vertically centered in the space. Looks very nice. Select winter jackets, 40% off, period. And then shop now. Shop now is underlined, but this whole thing is the hyperlink to the sales section, I guess. That part's pretty easy, but here's where the real skill is going to come in. I want you to use Font Awesome to make this little 4-icon little baby alternate nav menu. And I would like this little pop-up there for each one off to the side with that text. So make sure you get that, and notice there's a cutesy little arrow on that too, so don't forget that cutesy little arrow. Try to match just eyeball sizes, colors. Notice when I hover over these little icons, those change to gray. It's very easy to do when you use that Font Awesome icon technique. Yeah, the little hover in, you know, when you mouse over that, I found that to be a little bit tricky. I used a combination of techniques. I will give you a hint. You cannot put a transition on display. However, you can do transitions on colors and opacity and positions and things like that, or like top, left, you know, that kind of stuff. So you can put transitions on a number of things, but you can't put a transition on display. So just keep that in mind when you're tinkering with that particular area, if you decide to work on it. If you just wanted to fill something in there while you're working on your demo, you can put that text right over there on the left, do some basic styling to get it positioned good, and you could just put 4 little blocks over here, 4 little square-shaped anchors, display as block, that's fine. And you can always go back and tackle that extra credit if you are so motivated. All right, so even though the real work is going to be on this Columbia nav, it's a lot of work. So let's do a couple of easy things first to just kind of get us warmed up. And I think an easy thing can be getting that Columbia logo, getting the rough location of where our main nav is going to be, and then going down and putting in a background graphic on our hero section, and at least making this call to action. And that's going to make a pretty good first video for this particular assignment. And then I think we will pick it up in the next video, really getting to work on this nav menu. So let's warm our fingers up with a few easy things. Okay, so back over on the HTML, in the top bar, in the nav bar, we have several parts. Okay, so in our top bar, we definitely have our logo, or I'm sorry, I keep saying top bar, but really I mean main nav, or nav, what did I call it? Nav bar, that's right, nav bar. Okay, first, we have an anchor. I'm just doing href, and what did I call this before? Very exciting, class equals logo. And yeah, I didn't do empty. So let's see, what do I have? I called my business Deschutes, and I used an entity. Let me actually, I can't copy that, so let me just type it in. So in front of the word Deschutes, I used a span, and within that span I used ampersand. That's a ampersand hashtag 10070 semicolon. Okay, so that is an HTML entity, and there's tons of these codes which will display various bullets and symbols and arrows and little things like that. It's a pretty nice way to go because, like working with icons from Font Awesome, it gives you something that you can control size and color of very easily, just like it is a font. And that's what I did there. And I did a little browsing for this one. I don't have all these memorized, by the way, so whenever I need one, I'll search for HTML entities. Ooh, you know what? I think I may have saved the page I found this because it was really useful. I think I saved it up here. Character entities. I can't remember if this is where I got this one or for some previous, but this is the same basic idea. This isn't the original page where I found this particular shape, but I found this page to be super useful, so I bookmarked it. And yeah, you can just kind of browse through, and yeah, I used a couple of these arrows later on. Okay, so I don't see the actual little shape I used here, but let me show you. I just did a search for that HTML entity. Did I search for diamond? I might have. Top tool, yeah, this is it, and you can tell it's purple. This is the one I went to earlier. Well, nope, that wasn't it. I think I tried that first and I found a better one. Diamond. There it is. That's what I used. Great. So this is a really cool site. TopTool, TOPTAL.com. Yeah, it's a nice one. And yeah, so that's the symbol I used, and there's the HTML code that I used right there. And yeah, I played around, and I found by putting it in a span by itself, it allowed me to much more easily style it separately from the text. So that's why that span tag is there. And they also give you a CSS example. Notice there's a CSS syntax for using this that's different. Yeah, that's a really good site. So let's see. Let me I'm just going to back out this a little bit here. Nope. HTML arrows. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I guess I'll just bookmark this one too. It's pretty nice. I'll just put it under my web development here. Pop it right in there. So that way I can HTML symbols, entities, character codes, HTML arrows. Yeah, I guess I use arrows more than other things. And once I'm there, I can obviously find other stuff. Nice. So that's where that code came from. And it's really tiny. You can't see it, but trust me, it is there. So let's make sure you can see that clearly. This is in my anchor. Within my nav bar. Now, additionally, within that nav bar, I'll come back and style that logo in just a minute. Let's go and get the other key parts. let's see, I also had the main nav. Now for that, I used a nav tag. ID equals main nav. Cool. No J on that, by the way. And then, of course, there was also the little search box form. And I don't have it in my notes what I used, but obviously I didn't get to styling that yet. So I will just call that, what the hell, we'll just call it form ID equals search1. And yeah, that's good for now. That gives us something we can put a border on it, just get it out of the way, position it where we need to. All right, pretty happy with that. So yeah, main nav, search, we have those 3 key components, and these are all within the nav bar. All right, within the, and you know what? I'm still gonna work on this main style, this main CSS file, because these are still just very general, generic things. So, okay, the logo. Now I learned that that logo, of course, that's an anchor tag. Remember, I'm styling an anchor, not a block. So let me go ahead and do a display block on that. And I'm going to set the width to be 200 pixels and the height to be 90 pixels. I learned earlier that the width was 200 pixels, so I can really see it there. I think it's a bluish color. Yeah, blue. Looks good. Background color, and I'll do a hashtag there. Let's see. 005, that's very, very dark blue. Let's soften that a little bit. Now that's not showing up for me. I would have expected to see that a little bit better, so let's make sure I've got the right naming for it. I did a class equals logo, so I need to change that out to dot logo, and that's going to allow me to see that much better. And let me just soften this up a little bit, so I'll do something like 239. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Okay, and the color, we'll just do good old white. And there we go. Just takes a little second for my auto refresh to work. Sometimes I might have to click that refresh button. So now it's just a matter of styling this up a little bit. So let's see. Let's do a text decoration none. That gets rid of the underline. Text align center. It's going to horizontally center it. Line height of, I'm going to experiment here, but I'm going to try 80 pixels for vertical centering. That looks pretty good, maybe 85 pixels. And obviously we've got to get the font size a little bit better. How about font size 2Ms? Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. Eyeballing it? Yeah, it's what we call in the business good enough, right? Do I want that logo to be a little bit bigger? It actually doesn't need to be much bigger, but I do want you to see how that can be changed. So dot logo space span. A span that's within the logo, for instance, color yellow. We can change that pretty easily. And refresh. There we go. So now that logo's yellow. I'll keep it yellow just so you can see that. And then I could do something like font size 2.5M. to make it quite a bit bigger. That's pretty, now 2Ms for that one is noticeably large, 1.8Ms. But let me show you something else we can do here. So yeah, I've got that sized a little bit bigger, and then I can also do a position relative. Position relative is good when you just want to nudge something a little bit. And I want to nudge it downward. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go from the top 4 pixels. Now you'll notice that my deshoots got pushed down a little bit too. So let me play around with that line height again. 80 pixels. Let's ease up on that one. And I'm just kind of eyeballing a vertical centering. There we go. And now I can play more around with that span. And I'm just trying to get, yeah, that looks pretty good. And if I wanted to, I could move it a little bit more to the left. Left, negative 3 pixels. And that'll get a little bit further away. Yeah, I think that's fine. So I'm going to go ahead and call that good. I'll leave the color as yellow just so we can see that we can change that. But of course, white would have been fine. Cool, we got that. Now, let's see. We also have within this main nav. Now, most of our work on this main nav, I think we're going to take care of in another video and also on another CSS file. But I at least want to get that visualized and located. And did I use an ID for that? I did use an ID for that. Cool. So our main nav, now I think I want to position this. Now my logo did not get positioned, but I'm going to, I want to do a position relative on the nav bar. So I'm going to go back to the nav bar. And I'm going to do a position relative, which has no impact at first, but now it's going to allow me to position some other stuff. For instance, my main nav. I'm going to go ahead and give it a width of, I'm going to give it a min width of 500 pixels and a height of 90 pixels. And so that we can see what's going on, I'm going to give it an outline, 2 pixels solid red. That's the main nav. And you can see it's showing up right down there. Not where it's supposed to be, that's for sure. So let's do this. Position absolute. Now, whenever I do a position absolute, I always like to start 0 pixels left, 0 pixels from the top and see where it's going to occur. And you can see in that location, it is right where it should be. It's 0 pixels from the left and 0 pixels from the top of its parent, its relatively positioned parent. Obviously, I know my logo is 200 pixels wide, so that means my left positioning of that nav bar is going to be at least 200 pixels. If I look over at this example and hover over any, actually I don't even need to hover over any of the categories, I can see, at least based on where the word men is, it's not butted up right next to the logo, so I'm just going to eyeball it and see if we can't separate our nav a little bit over. And we can obviously easily adjust this later, but I'll try 220 pixels. See how that looks, pretty good. How about 230 pixels for now? Super, cool. So now I also have my form search 1. Let's go ahead and manage that. Form, no, let's do it this way. Form hashtag search 1. You don't have to put that selector in there, form, but sometimes it's nice as a reminder about the element that we're manipulating. It's easy to forget. Is this a section? Is it a div? Something like that. So you can be more specific by putting those elements in there. So my main nav is a nav tag, so I could have certainly done nav hashtag main nav. It doesn't change anything because I'm still being explicitly correct with that particular name. Okay, whereas .logo, that was an A, so that could be an anchor right there. And yeah, I kind of like doing that sometimes because it helps really remind you what that element was that you're manipulating. Cool. Now search 1, I don't want to do much with this at all, but let me go ahead and do some things that I've done with these others. I'll give it a min width of 250 pixels and a height of 90 pixels. Remember, this is just the form that contains everything. I'll give it an outline that's 2 pixels solid, and yeah, I can use red again, that's no big deal. Position absolute. This one I'm going to position from the right 0 pixels and from the top 0 pixels. And sure enough, it is showing right up there. So it's doing what it's supposed to do, just so we can really see. Background color, RGBA. Let's see, let's do 200, 200, 10, 0.7. Kind of an ugly gold yellow color. But yeah, we can see what's going on there, and if I've got that, I don't really need that outline. All right, and refresh, and that'll go away. Cool, I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. And in fact, I think I'm going to use background color instead of an outline for that main nav as well. But I'll change that up. Let's do something more purple. How about 200, 10, 200, or 100 it looks like I'm doing. And that's going to change that to a dark purple right there. That's fine. Those are just there to mark out those sections for us. We took care of part of it. We got that logo in there. That wasn't too tough. And yeah, things are looking pretty well here. Now remember, in this video, I still just want to do some easy stuff. So I'm going to put a background graphic on here. Now, of course, when I did the first time, I already made some images to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and style my section hero. Section hashtag hero. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and do a background image URL. And let's see, /images/ did I give it a good name? Oh yeah, I did South Sister. I got a nice picture of South Sister up there. Cool, that's showing up, and we'll do a background size cover. Great, so I've got my hero graphic. Now I don't remember on here, notice as I can hover anywhere on this and I do get a hyperlink, okay? So this whole hero section is a hyperlink. I don't know if I noticed that or styled anything about that. So I would like to take care of that. And I think to do that, I'm going to go ahead and create within my hero HTML anchor href equals hashtag class equals hero link. Looks pretty good. Okay, we can't really see that hero link, and this is different, it looks like. I'm just looking, you can't really see this, but we're looking right down there at the bottom left corner of my browser as I hover over this. I'm getting a different web address, I think. Yeah, it looks similar, just going to different categories it looks like. So this whole thing is the same hyperlink. That'll come into play later on when working on that. Okay, so I've got this .hero link inside of my hero section. Okay, the hero link is really big, so let's go ahead and make sure we display it as a block. Is that what I want to do? Yeah, definitely. Set the width to be 100% and the height to be 100%. Don't need to set that width, but I'm just getting the habit of doing that just so it can be explicit and know what's going on. So we've got this big, in fact, you can already see it working. Now I can hover over anywhere on this anchor, this hero, and I'm getting that hyperlink. So that part is pretty darn easy. No need to really do much more with that. Yeah. I thought that I might need to do some positioning, but it doesn't look like I'm going to need to. I'm probably going to want to, though, especially when I put that other little call to action on top of there, but we'll get to that later. So yeah, let me do it anyway. So I'm going to take my hero section and do position relative. Cool. I do that one a lot. And for this hero link, position absolute, left 0, top 0 is fine, and we shouldn't see any difference there. If I had an outline on this, or a border even, we'll see that that anchor fills up that space nicely, which it probably did before doing the positioning. But now that these are easily positioned elements, it's going to make it much easier to put that, that other little call to action right on top of this anchor. So it's kind of like an anchor menu on top of another anchor. All right, I think that's pretty good. Let me, instead of bright red, make it a super dark red so it just kind of gets out of the way a little bit. still on there. And yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop this video here. And feeling pretty good about this. And where I want to pick up next is on the hard stuff. And that's going to be working on this main menu right up here. So we're going to obviously have to work a little bit on the HTML side of things, but a lot of time on the CSS. We're going to take it in stages. And definitely I would encourage you to work ahead of me and start to do a little bit of setup. And first thing we're going to do is focus on these main categories. We're going to do unordered lists, definitely, and list items for those main menu items. Don't worry so much about the submenu yet. Submenu will be the next big step, and then the submenu will be the next big step. So cool. So let's go ahead and stop it here, and we'll pick this up in another vid. Thanks for hanging out.